The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called at the darkest hour in known history. Representatives from across the galaxy huddled in their bio-suited chambers, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of desperation that echoed through the massive crystalline hall of Nexus Prime. Ambassador Zethkar of the Vorthok Empire stood before the assembly, his usually proud chitinous frame trembling with barely contained terror. His 4 eyes swept across the gathered delegates, seeing the same fear reflected in every alien face. The holographic display behind him showed the devastating reality they all faced. Honored delegates, Zethkar's voice cracked through his translator. The Harvester fleet has consumed 17 more systems in the past rotation. They show no signs of slowing, no interest in negotiation, no mercy for any sentient life they encounter. The display shifted to show the aftermath of the latest attack. Where once the beautiful garden worlds of the Kalani cluster had sparkled like jewels in space, now only empty husks remained, stripped bare of all biological matter. Entire civilizations, billions of lives, reduced to cosmic dust in mere days. Council Speaker Mira Tell, an ethereal being of pure energy contained within a translucent crystalline shell, floated forward. Her harmonic voice resonated with grief that transcended species barriers. We have exhausted all diplomatic channels. Our combined fleets, the mightiest armada in galactic history, were swept aside like debris before a cosmic storm. The assembled delegates erupted in panicked chatter. Some wept, others raged, and many simply sat in stunned silence. In the 3,000 years since the Galactic Council's formation, nothing had ever posed such an existential threat to all sentient life. Admiral Cathara of the Regelian Defense Force, her scaled hide bearing fresh scars from the last engagement, stepped forward. Her tactical display showed the grim mathematics of their situation. The Harvesters adapt to our every strategy within hours. Their technology surpasses ours by orders of magnitude. They learn our weaknesses faster than we can develop new tactics. Their ships regenerate damage in real time, added Chief Engineer Borlan of the Mechanical Collective, his cybernetic implants flickering with stress patterns. Our most powerful weapons barely scratch their hulls before the damage heals. It's as if they're made of living metal that grows stronger with each attack we mount against them. The reality was becoming clear to everyone present. The Galactic Council, representing over 10,000 civilized species across the galaxy, was facing extinction. The Harvesters moved with relentless purpose, consuming everything in their path, growing stronger with each world they devoured. Dr. Yelena of the Science Directorate brought up the most disturbing findings. Her research team had been studying captured Harvester technology, though precious little remained intact after their encounters. We believe they're not just consuming biological matter for sustenance. They're learning from each species they absorb, incorporating their knowledge and abilities into their collective consciousness. This revelation sent a new wave of terror through the assembly. The Harvesters weren't just destroyers. They were cosmic parasites that grew more intelligent and dangerous with every civilization they consumed. What about the Outer Rim? Called out Ambassador Threx from the frontier worlds. Surely there must be some species we haven't contacted. Some military power we've overlooked? Speaker Miratel's energy form dimmed with despair. We have sent expeditions to every known sector. The rim worlds are either already consumed or lack the technology to make any meaningful difference. We are alone in this fight, and we are losing. The chamber fell into a silence so complete that the only sound was the gentle hum of the life support systems. Each delegate contemplated the same horrifying thought. They were witnessing the final chapter of galactic civilization. Then, from the far corner of the assembly, a voice spoke up that no one had heard before. What about Sector 7,742? All attention turned to Junior Archivist Nexala, a young member of the Record Keepers who rarely spoke in formal sessions. Her tentacles writhed nervously as thousands of eyes focused on her small form. Speak, young one, Speaker Miratel encouraged gently. Nexala's voice grew stronger. I've been researching our first contact logs, looking for any species we might have missed. There's a quarantine zone in Sector 7742 that's been marked as approach prohibited for nearly 500 years. The original survey team classified the system as containing a hostile death world inhabited by dangerous primitives. Admiral Cathara accessed her star charts. I see it. System designation, Sol 3. The survey report indicates the planet is classified as uninhabitable by galactic standards. Extreme temperature variations, violent weather patterns, deadly radiation exposure, and gravity nearly twice the galactic average. The inhabitants were noted as being exceptionally violent, Nexala continued, her confidence growing. The survey team observed them engaging in large-scale warfare, using primitive chemical explosives and metal projectiles. The Council voted to quarantine the system until the species either evolved beyond their violent nature or destroyed themselves. Chief Engineer Borlan pulled up the ancient files. The initial report describes them as bipedal carbon-based life forms with unusual resilience to environmental hazards. It says they somehow survived an extinction-level asteroid impact and multiple ice ages through pure adaptation. Dr. Yelana studied the biological data with growing interest. These readings are remarkable. They describe a species that evolved not just to survive on a death world, but to thrive on it. Their bones are denser than most species' armor plating. Their immune systems can adapt to threats in real time. They have redundant organs and healing factors that approach regeneration. But they're primitives, protested Ambassador Zethkar. The report says they hadn't even achieved faster-than-light travel. What could they possibly do against the harvesters that our advanced civilizations cannot? Speaker Miratel studied the data with growing fascination. Perhaps that's exactly what we need. Our technology has failed us. Our diplomatic traditions mean nothing to the harvesters. Our civilized approach to warfare is useless against an enemy that shows no mercy. The chamber buzzed with new energy as delegates began to grasp the possibility. Here was something the galaxy had never tried. Asking for help from a species that had been deemed too dangerous to contact. But the quarantine protocols, Admiral Cathara protested. We have no idea how they've developed in 5 centuries. They could be even more dangerous now. More dangerous than the complete extinction of all galactic life? Speaker Miratel asked pointedly. The harvesters will reach the core worlds within 50 rotations. We have nothing left to lose. Well, Ray, we have nothing left to lose. Nexala projected the ancient survey footage for all to see. The images showed bipedal creatures in primitive shelters, working with metal tools, demonstrating problem-solving abilities that had impressed even the original survey team. But what struck everyone was something else entirely. These beings had survived on a world that would kill most galactic species within hours. Look at their history, Dr. Yelana said, pulling up archaeological data. They've faced extinction dozens of times. Asteroid impacts, ice ages, volcanic eruptions, plague outbreaks that should have wiped them out completely. Yet each time, they not only survived, but became stronger. The debates that followed were intense. Many delegates argued that contacting such a violent species could create 2 threats instead of 1. Others pointed out that the quarantine existed for good reason, but as the discussions continued, the reality of their situation became impossible to ignore. The harvesters had consumed over 300 systems. Every fleet sent against them had been destroyed. Every diplomatic overture had been ignored. Every weapon in the galactic arsenal had proven useless. Finally, after hours of deliberation, Speaker Miratel called for a vote. All those in favor of lifting the quarantine on Sector 7742 and attempting contact with the Sol 3 inhabitants? The vote was close, but desperation won over caution. By a narrow margin, the Galactic Council authorized the most unprecedented action in its history, asking for help from a quarantined Deathworld species. Admiral Cathara volunteered to lead the expedition personally. If we're going to break our most sacred protocol, she said grimly, we might as well do it properly. I'll take a single ship to minimize the risk. And if they prove hostile? Ambassador Zethkar asked. The admiral's expression was grim but determined. Then we'll face the same extinction we're already facing, just from a different source. But if there's even the smallest chance they can help us. She left the sentence hanging. As the emergency session concluded, delegates dispersed to their homeworlds to deliver the news that the Galactic Council's last hope lay with a species they had deemed too dangerous to contact. The irony was not lost on anyone present. In her private chambers, Speaker Miratel reviewed the ancient files one more time. The images showed these strange bipedal creatures doing something that no other species in the galaxy had ever been documented doing. They were thriving on a world that should have killed them, turning deadly challenges into opportunities for growth. The question that haunted her, and would soon haunt the entire galaxy, was simple. If these beings could survive and prosper on a death world that would destroy any other known species, what were they truly capable of when that survival instinct was directed outward? The harvesters had never encountered anything like organized resistance. They had consumed civilizations, but never faced a species that had evolved specifically to survive the impossible. As Admiral Cathara prepared her ship for the journey to Sector 7742, she couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy was about to discover something unprecedented. Whether it would be their salvation or their doom remained to be seen. The countdown to first contact had begun. Number: First contact with the Deathworlders. Admiral Cathara's ship, the diplomatic vessel Harmony, dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system with all stealth systems engaged. What she saw through her sensors made her question whether the Council had made a terrible mistake. The system was no longer primitive. Where the ancient surveys had shown a single inhabited planet with basic industrial development, Cathara now observed a thriving stellar civilization. Massive orbital installations ringed the third planet. Mining operations extracted resources from asteroid belts, with efficiency that impressed even her advanced sensors. Most shocking of all, defensive platforms bristling with weapons technology dotted the system's perimeter. Tactical analysis, she ordered her science officer, Commander Pexlan. Admiral, these readings are unprecedented. They've gone from pre-spaceflight to stellar civilization in 500 years. That's faster than any species in Council records. Cathara studied the tactical display with growing unease. What kind of weapons are those platforms carrying? Cathara, unknown energy signatures, but the power readings are. Pexlan paused, rechecking his instruments. Admiral, some of these platforms are generating more power than our entire ship. Before Cathara could respond, her communications officer looked up with alarm. Admiral, we're being scanned. Multiple sources. Using scanning technology I don't recognize. Impossible. Our stealth systems are military grade. Nothing should be able to detect us at this range. The answer came immediately as her view screen activated without any input from her crew. The face that appeared was unmistakably one of the species from the ancient surveys. But the technology displaying it was clearly advanced beyond anything the Council possessed. The being on screen was female, with the characteristic bilateral symmetry and forward-facing eyes that marked them as persistence predators. Her skin was darker than the ancient surveys had shown, and her expression held an intelligence that made Cathara's tactical instincts scream warnings. Unknown vessel. The being spoke in perfect Council standard, though her accent was unlike anything Cathara had heard. You have entered human space without authorization. State your intentions. Cathara felt her crew's shock ripple through the bridge. Not only had these humans detected them effortlessly, but they had learned Council standard without any previous contact. I am Admiral Cathara of the Galactic Council Diplomatic Corps, she replied, trying to maintain protocol despite her growing anxiety. We request permission to establish formal diplomatic contact. The human's expression shifted, and Cathara caught something that made her blood run cold. Amusement. This being was not impressed or awed by first contact with a galactic civilization. She was amused. Admiral Sarah Chen, commanding the Seoul Defense Grid, the human replied. You'll forgive our surprise, Admiral Cathara. Our long-range monitoring stations have been tracking Council activities for over 2 centuries. We've been wondering when you'd finally work up the courage to visit. The casual revelation that humans had been observing the Council without their knowledge sent shockwaves through Cathara's bridge crew. The implications were staggering. You've been monitoring us? Cathara asked, fighting to keep her voice steady. Of course. When you establish a quarantine zone around someone's home system, they tend to notice. We've been listening to your communications, studying your technology, learning your languages. We know about the Galactic Council, your member species, your trade networks, and your military capabilities. Admiral Chen's image shifted, and Cathara realized she was looking at a holographic projection from somewhere within the system. The technology required for real-time communication over interplanetary distances was beyond most Council members. We also know about the Harvesters, Chen continued, and her amusement vanished. We've been tracking their approach for the past 50 years. Our deep space monitoring stations have recorded every system they've consumed. Cathara felt a glimmer of hope. Then you understand the threat they represent. The Council needs your help. Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment, and Cathara caught something moving in the background of the transmission. Another human, this one male, appeared beside Chen. His appearance was somehow more unsettling than hers scarred, with eyes that held a cold calculation that reminded Cathara of apex predators. This is General Marcus Stone, commanding the Human Defense Forces, Chen said. He has some questions about your request for help. Stone stepped forward, and when he spoke, his voice carried an edge that made Cathara's survival instincts fire warning signals. Admiral, our intelligence indicates the Council has observed 17 species driven to extinction by these harvesters. Why didn't you contact us sooner? The question was like a physical blow. Cathara realized that these humans had been watching civilizations die while the Council maintained their quarantine protocols. The quarantine was established for the protection of both our civilizations. Cathara replied carefully. The original survey team determined that contact would be mutually dangerous. Stone's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes grew colder. Mutually dangerous. Because we were too primitive and violent for your civilized galaxy. It wasn't a question, and Cathara found herself unable to respond. The weight of the Council's decision to let entire civilizations die rather than risk contact with a species they deemed too dangerous suddenly felt overwhelming. General Stone, Admiral Chen interrupted gently. Let's focus on the current situation. Admiral Cathara, please transmit all available data on harvester technology, tactics, and capabilities. Cathara authorized the data transfer, watching as centuries of Council intelligence flowed to human databases in seconds. The speed of their data processing was another unsettling revelation. Interesting, Stone said after reviewing the files. Your people fight like prey animals. Defensive formations, retreat when threatened, reliance on technological superiority rather than tactical innovation. The casual insult stung, but Cathara was beginning to understand that it wasn't intended as cruelty. Stone was making a tactical assessment. The harvesters adapt to our strategies within hours, Cathara explained. Every tactic we've developed becomes useless almost immediately. That's because you're thinking like prey, Stone replied. You develop a strategy, implement it, and hope it works. When it fails, you develop a new strategy. Predictable, linear thinking. Admiral Chen brought up a holographic display showing harvester ship configurations. We've been analyzing their behavioral patterns through your transmitted data. They're efficient predators, but they follow consistent patterns. They've never had to adapt to truly chaotic, unpredictable opposition. What do you mean? Cathara asked. Stone's smile was not reassuring. They've been fighting civilized opponents. Species that follow rules of engagement, that try to minimize casualties, that retreat when faced with superior force. They've never fought humans, Cathara felt a chill run down her spine. What makes humans different? We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years, Chen explained. Ice ages that lasted tens of thousands of years, volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun, asteroid impacts that killed most life on the planet, predators that could tear us apart with ease. We survived by becoming the most dangerous predators on our world, Stone continued. Not through strength or natural weapons, but through intelligence, persistence, and absolute refusal to surrender. We don't retreat when faced with superior force. We adapt, we improvise, and we keep fighting until the threat is eliminated. Cathara studied the tactical displays, showing human military installations. The designs were unlike anything in Council databases, not defensive positions but offensive platforms designed for rapid deployment across interstellar distances. What are you proposing? She asked. The Council will provide us with detailed intelligence on harvester positions, capabilities, and movements, Chen said. In return, we'll handle the harvester problem. Handle it how? Our combined fleets couldn't even slow them down. Stone's expression grew predatory. Admiral, your fleets tried to fight them conventionally. Ship against ship. Technology against technology. You tried to match their strengths. We're going to teach them what humans learned long ago, Chen added. When you can't win through strength, you win through cunning. When you can't match their technology, you make technology irrelevant. Cathara felt a growing sense that she was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. What do you need from us? Nothing, Stone said simply. We've been preparing for this fight since we first detected the harvesters 50 years ago. We've built our fleets, trained our forces, and developed tactics specifically designed to counter their advantages. But we will need the Council to stay out of our way, Chen added. Human tactics are unconventional by your standards. We don't follow rules of engagement that limit effectiveness. What does that mean? Stone leaned forward, and Cathara caught a glimpse of something that made her understand why the original survey team had recommended quarantine. It means, Admiral, that when we're done, the harvesters will wish they had never encountered this galaxy. But so will anyone who gets in our way. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Cathara and her crew in stunned silence. After a moment, her communications officer spoke up tentatively. Admiral, we're receiving navigation data. They're escorting us to a meeting point just outside their system. Cathara looked at her tactical display and felt her blood run cold. Dozens of human ships had decloaked around them, ships that had been completely invisible to their sensors. The technology gap wasn't in the Council's favor, it was massively in favor of the humans. Follow their guidance, she ordered quietly. As the Harmony moved toward the designated coordinates, Cathara contemplated the magnitude of what had just occurred. The Council had sought help from a species they thought were primitive Deathworlders. Instead, they had discovered a civilization that had not only matched their technology, but had apparently surpassed it, while developing military doctrines specifically designed for total warfare. The question that haunted her was no longer whether the humans could help against the harvesters. The question was whether the galaxy would survive having the humans as allies. Behind them, hidden in the depths of space, the Sol defense grid powered up weapons that operated on principles the Council didn't even have theories for. The humans had been preparing for this war for half a century. The harvesters were about to learn why the galaxy had quarantined Earth. Number: the Deathworlders, unleashed. The harvester fleet arrived at the Kepler 442 system with the same methodical precision they had shown in consuming over 400 previous systems. Their massive biomechanical ships moved in perfect formation, dark hulls gleaming with the organic technology that had adapted to counter every weapon the galaxy had thrown at them. Fleet Nexus Vorgath, the collective consciousness commanding the Harvester Armada, felt the familiar surge of anticipation as they approached another ripe system full of biological matter to absorb. The preliminary scans showed the usual signs of panicked evacuation, scattered refugee ships fleeing toward the outer system, abandoned orbital stations, and desperate communication signals begging for mercy. What Vorgath didn't detect were the thousands of human ships lying dormant throughout the system, their hulls coated with stealth composites, developed from studying the galaxy's deadliest natural predators. The trap had been set for 3 months. Admiral Sarah Chen watched from the command center of the dreadnought Perseverance as the Harvester fleet moved deeper into the system. Her tactical display showed the positions of every human vessel submarines of space that had been waiting in perfect silence for this moment. "All ships report ready," her operations officer announced. "Phase 1 deployment complete." Chen activated the fleet communication system. Every human ship in the system could hear her voice, but the Harvesters detected nothing. Human communication technology had evolved from their natural talent for persistence hunting, the ability to coordinate complex group tactics across vast distances. "Pack hunters," she said simply. "Begin the hunt." The first phase of the attack was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Instead of the direct fleet engagements the Harvesters expected, individual human ships began appearing throughout the Harvester formation, striking with weapons that targeted biological components specifically. The humans had studied every piece of Harvester technology the Council had provided. But more importantly, they had studied the biological patterns that allowed Harvester ships to adapt and regenerate. Human scientists, raised on a world where understanding your prey meant survival, had found the weaknesses. Harvester ships began experiencing system failures as human weapons delivered precisely targeted electromagnetic pulses that disrupted the bioelectric networks controlling their adaptive abilities. For the first time in their history, Harvester ships couldn't heal damage faster than it was being inflicted. Vorgath's confusion rippled through the fleet mind. These attacks made no sense according to established patterns. The humans weren't trying to destroy Harvester ships, they were disabling their ability to adapt while systematically taking apart their formation. "Unknown vessels." Vorgath transmitted on all frequencies. "You will be absorbed. Resistance is futile. Your biological distinctiveness will be added to our collective." The response came from General Marcus Stone, broadcasting from his command ship at the edge of the system. His voice carried across space with the cold certainty of a predator addressing its prey. "This is General Stone of the Human Defense Forces. You have 30 seconds to withdraw from this system, or we will demonstrate why Earth was quarantined." Vorgath processed this statement with algorithmic precision. Threats from inferior species were statistically irrelevant. The Harvesters had absorbed the technology and knowledge of over 10,000 civilizations. No single species could pose a meaningful threat. The 30 seconds elapsed. "Very well." Stone's voice cut through space. "All units. Weapons free. Show them what Deathworlders do to things that threaten their pack." Phase 2 began with a revelation that shattered everything Vorgath understood about warfare. The human ships didn't just attack. They swarmed with the coordinated lethality of Earth's most successful predators. Human tactical doctrine had evolved from millions of years of persistence hunting. They didn't rely on overwhelming firepower or technological superiority. Instead, they used mobility, unpredictability, and relentless pressure to exhaust their prey's ability to respond effectively. Harvester ships found themselves facing attacks from multiple angles simultaneously. Just as their adaptive systems began compensating for one type of weapon, human ships would shift tactics, using completely different approaches that reset the adaptation process. "This is impossible," Vorgath transmitted to its fleet. "They're using primitive kinetic weapons mixed with advanced energy systems. The tactical paradigm shifts every few seconds." What Vorgath couldn't understand was that this chaos was precisely controlled. Human commanders thought like pack hunters, each ship playing a specific role in wearing down the prey while staying mobile enough to avoid retaliation. The Harvester's greatest strength, their ability to adapt to threats, became a weakness against opponents who never presented the same threat twice in a row. Admiral Chen monitored the engagement from her command ship, watching as centuries of human military evolution demonstrated its effectiveness. Phase 3. Initiate boarding operations. This was when the true horror began for the Harvesters. Human boarding parties launched from stealth ships that had penetrated deep into harvester formations. But these weren't normal boarding operations. The humans wore armor designed for their homeworld's extreme conditions, suits that could function in environments that would kill most galactic species instantly. When the first human boarding party cut through the hull of a harvester vessel, Vorgath experienced something new. Fear. The creatures that emerged from the breaching pods moved with purpose and coordination that defied the harvester's understanding. They fought in coordinated teams, covering each other's movements with tactical precision that seemed instinctive rather than trained. More disturbing was their apparent immunity to the biological weapons that had proven effective against every other species. Human soldiers advanced through clouds of toxic spores and corrosive atmospheres without any visible effect, their armor sealing automatically while their internal systems filtered out deadly toxins. How are they surviving exposure to our defensive systems? Vorgath demanded of its tactical processors. The answer came from the harvester databases, as they analyzed human physiology in real time. These beings had evolved on a world so hostile that they had developed natural resistance to most forms of biological warfare. Their immune systems were more aggressive and adaptable than anything in the harvester collective memory. Worse still, the human boarding parties weren't trying to capture harvester technology. They were systematically destroying the bio-neural networks that connected individual ships to the collective consciousness. For the first time in their existence, harvester ships began operating independently, cut off from the shared intelligence that made their fleet tactics possible. Individual vessels found themselves facing human opponents without the collective knowledge that had made them unstoppable. The psychological warfare was devastating. Humans had studied predator behavior for millions of years, and they understood how to break the morale of group-minded species. Each successful boarding operation sent ripples of panic through the remaining harvester fleet. General Stone monitored the engagement from his flagship, noting with satisfaction how quickly harvester coordination degraded once their collective network was disrupted. All ships, prepare for Phase 4. Time to end this. Phase 4 was the killing stroke. Every human ship in the system simultaneously targeted the same objective: the Harvester Command Vessel, where Vorgath's primary consciousness resided. The attack wasn't random. Human intelligence had spent months analyzing Harvester fleet structures to identify the central node. The concentration of firepower was unlike anything the galaxy had ever produced. Not because of the raw energy involved, but because of the precision and coordination. Every shot was calculated to arrive simultaneously, overwhelming the command ship's adaptive defenses before they could respond. Vorgath felt its primary consciousness fragmenting as critical systems failed throughout its command vessel. For the first time, it experienced true mortality, the knowledge that its individual existence could end. "Please," Vorgath transmitted desperately. "We yield. We surrender. We will withdraw from this sector." The response from General Stone was immediate and final. "You should have thought of that before you started eating civilizations. No mercy for genocidal parasites." The command ship's destruction sent shockwaves through the remaining harvester fleet. Without their central coordination and facing continued assault from human forces that seemed to multiply and adapt faster than they could respond, the harvester fleet began to break apart. Some ships attempted to flee, only to discover that human vessels were faster and more maneuverable than their scanners had indicated. Others tried to surrender, broadcasting pleas for mercy in dozens of galactic languages. The human response was methodical and absolute. Every harvester vessel was systematically hunted down and destroyed. There would be no survivors to report back to other harvester fleets. No chance for the collective to learn from this encounter. When the last harvester ship was reduced to debris, Admiral Chen activated the fleet-wide communication system again. "All ships, report status. Minimal casualties," came the responses from across the fleet. "All objectives secured." The entire engagement had lasted less than 4 hours. Admiral Cathara, who had been observing from a safe distance with a small council fleet, could barely comprehend what she had witnessed. The Harvester Armada that had consumed over 400 star systems had been completely annihilated by a human force that suffered less than 1% casualties. "Admiral Chen," Cathara transmitted shakily. "How is this possible? Our combined fleets couldn't even slow them down." Chen's response carried the quiet confidence of a predator that had just demonstrated its dominance. "Admiral, you tried to fight them the way civilized species fight each other, with honor, with rules, with the assumption that your opponents would show mercy if you surrendered. We fought them the way Deathworlders fight extinction-level threats," General Stone added. "With everything we had, using every advantage our evolution gave us, and with the absolute knowledge that losing meant the death of everything we cared about." Cathara studied the tactical recordings of the engagement, trying to understand how the humans had achieved the impossible. "What happens now? Now we hunt down every remaining harvester fleet," Stone replied grimly. "We've been tracking their movements for decades. We know where they are, where they're going, and how many there are." "Af, you're going to hunt them all?" "Every single one," Chen confirmed. "That's what persistence predators do, Admiral. We don't just defeat threats, we eliminate them completely to protect our pack." As the human fleet began departing the system to hunt the remaining harvester forces, Cathara finally understood why Earth had been quarantined. Not because humans were too primitive or too violent for galactic civilization, but because they were too dangerous. The galaxy had spent millennia developing rules and protocols to prevent the kind of total warfare that humans considered normal. They had created a civilized society where conflicts were limited and extinction-level threats were unthinkable. But when a true extinction-level threat appeared, only the species that evolution had forged in the crucible of constant survival pressure could respond effectively. The Galactic Council had wanted saviors. Instead, they had unleashed the most efficient killers the galaxy had ever produced. Within 6 months, every harvester fleet in the galaxy had been systematically hunted down and destroyed. The threat that had nearly ended galactic civilization was eliminated so completely that no trace of harvester technology or consciousness remained. The Council's relief was matched only by their growing unease about their new allies. The humans had saved the galaxy, but they had done so with a ruthless efficiency that reminded everyone why they had been quarantined in the first place. When the last harvester was destroyed, General Stone sent a simple message to the Galactic Council: "Threat eliminated. Earth returning to normal operations." The quarantine zone around Sol was quietly re-established by mutual agreement. The galaxy had learned that some species were best left undisturbed, not because they were too primitive to understand civilization, but because they were too evolved for it.